got this coming up in just a little bit. But we rearranged the show only for him. The summer travel season is about to kick into full gear, but it'll be missing one key low-cost carrier. This month, you guys heard, Spirit Airlines officially shut down all operations. Here to talk about that, and of course, travel news and travel deals, one of my good friends. Give it up for Kyle Potter from Thrifty Traveler. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
There's so much to get to. Let me phrase it like this. Let's start with Spirit. The news has been out there, but I know you agree with me, and I think you've talked about it on the Thrifty podcast. Spirit has been, there's no denying it, Spirit is the punchline to a lot of late night jokes and has been for years, and just a lot of jokes for all of us. But your feeling is, and explain why, nobody, even if you've never flown Spirit, nobody should be cheering this news. Why?
I mean, I have personally flown Spirit a handful of times over the years. I wasn't in a hurry to do it again, and I'm just crushed that this airline went out of business, because here's what happens. We saw it here in Minneapolis ourselves before they went out of business, because they exited the market. They had been flying from Minneapolis to Detroit and Atlanta until early December of last year. And what happened is, when they stopped selling those tickets for mid-December and onward, Delta raised fares by 50% or more on both of those routes. That is the Spirit effect. That is why nobody can afford to cheer for this airline, no matter how much you hate them, no matter how much you swear you would never set foot in those 28-inch legroom seats. That is what they do. They force every other airline to compete on price, and with them leaving the market altogether, it only means all of us are going to pay more.
And there's no silver, you can't, is there a single silver lining, or is there any hope that another low-cost carrier is coming back?
You know I'm not an optimistic guy.
I know you're not an optimist, I know, yeah.
The best case scenario is that other scrappy airlines like Frontier or JetBlue or Allegiant and Sun Country, as those two combine, kind of pick up the pieces, and they're able to carve out a bigger market to be more successful than they are today, because Spirit isn't carrying those passengers. The more likely scenario is that the big just get bigger, that Delta gets bigger and picks up those passengers and those routes and those gates in markets like Fort Lauderdale and Phoenix and wherever. United, American, it doesn't bode well.
And I don't want to pick on Delta, but the facts are the facts, and this is observable. And I believe Mr. Ed said it, the big cheese over at Delta. They're not real concerned. I'm making a generalization, but Delta is not concerned about the low-cost customer. Their bottom line is padded. They're realizing their bottom line is padded by higher tier passengers. Am I right on this?
Everything among the big U.S. airlines, especially Delta and United right now, is about chasing premium travel. It's about installing more business class seats on long hauls abroad. It's about offering better service to first class passengers up front, and convincing all of these people to pay more than they did last year. And one of the many reasons why Spirit went out of business is that airlines like Delta figured out how to do both. How to do that at the front of the plane, and then at the back of the plane, they've added these bigger planes with more seats, and they've sold them as cheaper basic economy fares, stealing passengers away from the likes of Spirit. So, when they don't have to worry about that anymore, I mean, that doesn't mean, just because Spirit is out of the game now, that Delta is going to stop selling those cheap basic economy fares where they charge you for seat assignments and bags and everything else. It just
potty breaks.
They're going to charge. What they're going to do is they're going to charge more for those seats, because Spirit is not there to pressure them on price.
If people are watching and they have a Spirit ticket, what should they do?
Spirit fortunately has said that they will issue refunds to people who have, tickets booked for the weeks and months to come. If that hasn't happened already, so long as you booked with a credit card, not a debit card, you can file a chargeback. But I would say that should be your last resort. That is an option. If Spirit hasn't issued it and still hasn't, even though you've contacted them, they should have issued refunds for everything on the books already, though.
Let's go back to Delta. And again, I don't want to feel like I'm picking on Mr. Ed or Delta. I love them. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm a loyalty guy with them. But again, the facts are the facts. They made news recently because they're getting rid of you guys. I saw the news with you guys first. They're ending snacks and drinks on shorter flights. What does that mean to people watching?
It means, on these short sub 1 hour flights. So, from Minneapolis to Chicago, for example, you're no longer going to get a free beverage or a snack on board. You're going to want to buy that stuff in the airport or bring it from home ahead of your short, 1-ish hour flight tends to be where the cutoff is. The rub here is that it stinks to lose any level of service. The reality is that when you talk about, taxi times getting up in the air and how long that takes to level off and, is there turbulence? Well, then the flight attendants have to stay seated. There are going to be shockingly few flights that are truly affected by this, in large part because the cutoff is 350 miles. Minneapolis to Chicago is 334 miles. But prior to this, flights that were 250 miles or less didn't get service to begin with. So we're talking about a small slice of flights that are truly affected.
And didn't Delta say in their press release they're adding snacks to some? Can you explain that? Because I read that line. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they're adding kind of a full beverage cart service, whereas before on some of these shorter flights that used to get service, it would just be walking through the aisle with cups of water and coffee in economy and in Comfort Plus. So you're going to get a little bit more choice on some of those longer short flights.
The first flight first rule. Can you explain that to people?
This is the Bible if you want to travel for cheap. This is number one with a bullet, the most important thing to do, especially now, given what ticket prices look like. Before you request time off work, before you even check with your spouse in some cases, if you see a great deal when you're using a tool like Google Flights, hey, hang with me, they will forgive you when it helps you save $200, $500 on a big trip abroad. If you search for flights first, that gives you the flexibility to, say, depart on a Tuesday and return on a Tuesday instead of return on a Monday, because that is the number one thing that you can do in order to save on airfare.
Flights first. You just got back. We were just talking about from Southeast Asia. You needed a one-way flight from Hong Kong to Bangkok. What's the best way to book a trip like that? What did you learn from that? And you're you're Kyle Potter, for heaven's sake.
I mean, there are so many airlines in Southeast Asia that will sell you a cheap ticket to the point where, you can get between two major cities in Southeast Asia for under $50 if you time it right. Or if you want to splurge a little bit for a nicer flight, Emirates, while they're based in Dubai, most flights, from the United States go to 15 plus hours in Dubai, but they have these really funky flights all over the world. And one of them flies between Hong Kong and Bangkok, where not many people fly on that plane, on that route, but they have a huge double-decker A380 with a bar at the back of the business class cabin, and they'll sell you...
Suddenly, I'm interested.
Right? And they'll sell you a business class ticket. We bought ours for $320. That's what we pay to fly economy to Miami right now.
I can't get to Chicago for that amount right now. Before we get to deals, really quickly, we were talking during the break, Thailand, probably, am I categorizing it, probably one of your favorite places now?
Oh yeah, this is our second time to Thailand, but we went to this small island that was a bit of a gauntlet to get to. There was a short flight and then a boat ride and then a couple of car rides. But the reward...
But other than that...
But other than that, the reward was 10 of, I kid you not, the 10 best beaches in the world with no more than 15 people on each of them. And in some cases, my wife and I would get to a beach and we'd look around and be like, we are the only people in the most beautiful beach on the planet right now.
That is a dream right there. Let's get to some deals. What do we have?
Minneapolis to Anchorage, Alaska this summer. Summer is when you want to go to Alaska. One of the most beautiful states in the country. $388 round trip nonstop. Minneapolis nonstop flying Delta to Tokyo. They're going to charge you $887 to fly to Chicago round trip, or $887 round trip nonstop to Tokyo and back this summer and fall. Now here's the best one. You start in Minneapolis or anywhere across the country. You fly to LA in Delta first class.
Okay.
You get off the plane, you go to the Delta One Lounge, you get a sit-down restaurant and a sushi bar, and then you hop on a flight for 13 hours in Delta One suites to Hong Kong, your gateway to anywhere in Southeast Asia, for 85,000 sky miles per person.
That's
Delta One
guys, that
suites.
is very cheap. 85,000 sky miles?
5,000 sky miles for a live flat Delta One bed.
And that Delta One Lounge audience, if I could choose a place to pass away, it would be there. I would just want to just pass away right there. I'd be happy.
There's nobody drying themselves off with their leg up on the counter.
There's none of that activity in there.
Don't do that there.
Give it up for the best. It's Kyle Potter, everybody. For more information, head to thriftytraveler.com and listen to Kyle on the Thrifty Traveler podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Next up, the hot dish, something special on late night. 5 late night hosts gather to say goodbye to Stephen Colbert. They talk the future of late night and more. The hot dish when the Jason Show continues right after this. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Thank you for making it work.